Trust Me Travel presents a series of travel narratives from around the world entitled Travel Time with Robert and Tracy. This narrative is for Romania. Romania is in Western Europe. The capital of Romania, where we arrived, is Bucharest. Bucharest has a population of about 1.8 million people. Surprisingly, that is a decrease from the turn of the millennium in 2000. Arriving at the main airport, we pick up our rental car because we're going to drive through Romania. Bucharest was established in about the 14th century. It's on a small river which is a tributary to the Danube. They say the city is being revitalized. They consider it to be the new Paris, or at least that's what they tell. The gentleman on the horse is Karl I, who united the northern and southern part of Romania into a single country. This is the Antheatum, or the Symphony Hall for Bucharest. Revolutionary Square, which we're seeing here, is dominated by this statue, which is dedicated to the revolution of 1989 when Ceausescu, the communist leader, was overthrown. This is the second largest building in the world, the Palace of Parliament, built by Ceausescu. Only 40% of it was ever finished. Our hotel, which is pictured here, is on Victoria Avenue, which is the center street of the old heart of Bucharest. It's been revitalized into kind of a yuppie area where people like to come and gather. There's little side shops and little street activities, as you can see. The little sidewalk cafes are all around, as are these little icon shops where you can buy this. This is the Stavropolius Church, built in the 18th century. A very nice little Baroque church here. But Romulus and Remus, who are the founders of ancient Rome, are given credit to be the founders of Romania, even though it's thousands of miles away. You'll see these statues throughout Romania. The principal reason for us to visit Romania was to visit Dracula's castle. So the next morning we get up, leave Bucharest, and drive up to the little town of Bran in central Romania. Once you leave Bucharest, you're pretty quickly into the foothills of the Carpathian Mountains. We see this little church, not so much interesting, but this was, which was right in front of it, a horse-drawn cart. But it was also the fall of the year, October. The leaves were just changing, and you'd see these little ladies on occasion walking around. This is the town of Sinaia, named after Mount Sinai. Has no relation to the desert as far as I could tell, but it has this monastery here, very famous, and is also the playground for the Romanian royalty. They built this castle, Pele's Castle, up here in a very idyllic area. The leaves are changing, and of course the sight and the sounds of fall were all around us. As we travel on, you can see some of the mountains, Carpathian Mountains, becoming bigger and closer as we drive up to Bran. This gentleman, we stopped along the side of the road, asked if we could take a picture. He said yeah, but he wanted $5 for the privilege. A little Transylvanian village, colorful little things along the side of the road. We eventually hit Bran. This is the little town. Along the way into Bran, you'd see these little mileage markers or kilometer markers. This says you are in the middle of Bran downtown. Dracula's castle is their only reason to come to Bran, and they take great advantage of marking it. Tracy's bucket list is to see Dracula's castle. She's very excited. Let's go see Dracula. I don't know if this cross had significance or not, but it kind of gave us some reassurance as we head up the hill into Dracula's castle. The novel Dracula was written in 1897 by the author Bram Stoker. He's credited to have used this as his archetype for Dracula's castle. As you go up the steps and into some of the secret interior passages, eventually you will end up here in the master or main bedroom. If Count Dracula had been a real person, he would have flown out these windows at night. The window overlooks the main courtyard, as you can see down below. It's actually quite a pleasant little sight. Bram Stoker read an account of Transylvanian folklore. He was not the first author to talk about vampires, but he did make them famous. Throughout Transylvania, you'll see these red tile roofs. They're a very common sight. We had read in our guidebook that the color red had a spiritual significance to ward off the evil eye or evil. We asked the locals if red or the red roofs had any significance. They kind of looked at us like we were idiots because all the roofs are red and that's just the color they are. So I don't know if there's too much significance to that. This is downtown Bran. As you leave the castle, of course, you run through all of this shopping area where you can buy all things, everything, many things related to Dracula. We looked around here, looked around there. Most of the stuff is made in China. Didn't feel like bringing stuff back from China, from Transylvania. We did stop and have lunch at this little cafe along the side. Those gentlemen were saying those guys shouldn't have ordered that because it was a really bad tasting something. Leaving Bran, we are now driving north, a little bit later than we'd like, because we're going to head up into Sigasora and probably won't get there until it's dark. Sigasora is a medieval city located due north out of Bran. The roads aren't quite due north, but eventually we head that way. Passing through various Transylvania villages along the way, you'll see these houses. They're usually situated right next to each other, but sometimes you'll see these communist-era apartment blocks put in the middle of an area of these little houses. But the real charm are these little farmsteads. That is not a thatched roof on the right, but is simply a haystack. You'll see many fortified hilltops or citadels. Transylvania was a very warlike area in the Middle Ages, and you'll pass through many fortified little towns and villages with their churches, which is the main places of refuge being fortified. The city of Sigasora is a small city that is well preserved. Here we are arriving finally at night at the main gate. Entering into Sigasora at night is kind of a magical experience. It's well lit up, very well maintained, and we are headed into the interior part within the city walls. And this is the main plaza. You can see the tower here, which is the main clock tower, as well as the guard tower for the main gate. We are actually staying in a little bed and breakfast area. All these little houses or buildings around here belongs to craftsmen back in the Middle Ages. This building here was built in about the 14th century. A view from our hotel rooms looking out over the tower. The next day we get up excited to see Sigasora. In the morning you can see the view from our hotel room. Red tiled roofs of Transylvania again. Overlooking the city center again with a clock tower in the background. Our hotel or bed and breakfast, like I said, was in a building that had been built in the 14th century. Here's Tracy going down for breakfast. This was a craftsman home at one time. In other words, this was medieval middle class. As I said, Sigasora was established in about the 12th century. Had a Roman heritage or background even before then. This is the main city plaza. Sigasora is a colorful city in the daylight. You can see the many pastel colors. Surprisingly wide streets for a medieval city, but again, this part of the city, within the city walls, were the homes of the elite, the craftsmen of the era. Passing by the Eastern Orthodox Church, we come across the City Hall and see this young lady coming out. Tracy says hi, she says hi back. They're very friendly people. Wandering through the streets, you can see the kind of medieval character of it. Like I say, the streets were surprisingly wide for a medieval. Tracy gets panhandled by these gypsies or Roma people. She gives them some money, of course. Continuing to explore the area, we head up to the top of the Citadel Hill, up through these steps. You eventually get up there and come across this, what I call a little Hansel and Gretel house. It actually is the sexton's house for the cemetery that happens to be established up here. If Dracula, the vampire Dracula, was a real person, he would have been buried here. But there was a real Count Dracula. Vladimir Dracula was the father of Vladimir the Impaler Dracula, from whom the people in Transylvania take credit for the story of Dracula. Again, more red tile roofs. They've been around here for a long time. You can tell by some of the vegetation or growth that's growing on the rooftops. But as I indicated, there really was a Count Dracula. Though he was not a vampire, he was a ruler who lived in this city of Sigosora. This happened to be his house, and today you can saddle up to the bar and get a drink with good old Vladimir. Leaving Sigosora, we're headed down to the city of Cebu, which is located in the western region of Transylvania, so we'll get to see a pretty good slice of the Romanian countryside. Romania, of course, has lots of farms, and I call it a kind of a mix of modern and ancient technologies. You'll see men out in the fields harvesting the grain, in this case corn, with scythes and sickles. And you'll see these cities, the towns, of course, with the little buildings right next to each other, but it's a very common sight to see these horse-drawn carts going through the town carrying various articles of trades and goods. As you travel down the highways, you'll see these cornfields. Wheat fields had already been harvested. But you'll also see these shrines on the outsides of the various towns and villages, as well as these fortified churches around the area. These were areas of defense in the Middle Ages. But we decided that we would get off the main road and go see a small village off to the side. This was a little village of about 5,000 people, so I don't know how small it was, but I think it's pretty typical. The streets were, of course, dirt. In the middle of the village or town was quite a large church. It had been there forever, it looks like. At the base of the church, you'll see this little trough where this young girl is collecting their drinking water. The city or town had electricity, but they didn't seem to have running water to the houses. And so if you wanted to get your cooking or drinking or washing, bathing water, you went to one of these troughs along the side of the road and filled up your bottles and took it home. And because they didn't have running water in the house, they didn't have bathrooms. I'm sure they had little outhouses in the back courtyard or whatever. After a pleasant drive through the Transylvania countryside, we arrive at the city of Cebu. This is a much larger city than Sigosora is. Here we are in the central plaza courtyard, but it has a much more imperial feel to it. It is also a favorite of German tourists, and we just happen to have missed Oktoberfest here. But you can see it is a more princely sort of a statement. But we are looking for a place for lunch, and there's lots of these little sidewalk cafes along the side of the roads. We pick one that looks appealing, sit down, and have a delightful time in the sunshine having our lunch. Our real goal is to get back to Bucharest for the evening. So after leaving Cebu, we head down the main highway towards the capital. And this follows a river valley, and the road starts out to be a very nice road. Of course, we fill up with gas just to make sure we get there along the way. But as I indicated, this is the main highway to the capital, and it really starts off looking really good. But pretty soon it changes to this kind of two-lane country road, which has its difficulties for drive, but it certainly has a lot of charm because you see a lot of this again. And of course you have the little ladies sitting out in front of their houses chatting and talking with each other. You see the shrines along the side of the road indicating which municipality you're at. And the hillsides along the river valley are just really pleasant to go until you run up into the back end of one of these. We eventually find our bed and breakfast for the night. It happens to be close to the airport, but it also happens to be in a residential area and somewhat hard to find. This concludes our trip through Romania. Hope you've enjoyed our short little travel there. The next day we fly off to Istanbul, Turkey, but that's another time on Travel Time with Robert and Tracy, presented by Trust Me Travel. We have a large selection of travel videos on trustmewithtravel.com. So join us there, trustmewithtravel.com. Robert and Tracy wish you happy travels.